we just welcome you into our house. We are glad that you're here, glad that you've come to work with us and partner with us as we address the needs and unmet needs of people here in New York, specifically looking at Coney Island, Canarsie, and Far Rockaway. You have been called by God. Always be humble and gentle. Be patient with one another, making allowances for each other's faults because of your love. Make every effort to keep yourselves united in the Spirit, binding yourselves together with peace. For there is one body and one Spirit, just as you have been called to one glorious hope for the future. Somebody can't do everything, but everybody can do something. Amen.
Amen. My name is Phyllis Harrison Ross, and I am the president of the All Healers Mental Health Alliance. This is a group that first began to come together after 9/11, when we as African Americans recognized that we needed more than just our mental health skills, closer with our faith-based colleagues, and this is a group of very strong people that are here today, and I would love to be able to take a lot of time and tell you what we've done and how we got involved with the Red Cross, and how, as a result, AMHA helped to write a chapter in their new disaster manual on cultural proficiency, so that things like what happened in 9/11, what happened after Katrina doesn't happen again. We got a ways to go. It may be on paper yet, it's not necessarily implemented, and your speaker today, Elliot Hill, has played a big role, including working with the Red Cross.
The day after Sandy hit, my husband and I said, oh, well, let's drive around and see what's happening. And we expected that we would see downed trees and power lines and have to get on that event. But we were shocked when we drove to the Canarsie area. People took us in their homes and showed us the devastation. You know, refrigerators laying cat a corner, refrigerators, washing machines, all having been left. People told us stories of how they were literally running for their lives, literally. Waist-high water, deep-high water, chest-high water.
Even when you look at Coney Island, when you look at, Brighton Beach side, and some of that stuff was happening. Look at the black side, we got to struggle for everything. When we look at the Con Edison turning on the lights, every aspect of this recovery work, we have to deal with race and resources. Who's going to get the money? Whose businesses will be repaired and taken care of first? So those are the kinds of things. How do we prevent this? Build some seawalls, build some levees to stop the stuff from happening instead of going through this over and over again. This city was not ready for this. They were not ready for this. They were not prepared for this in any community, but especially not ours. So we got to continue to fight, pray for our people. Some of our people really suffered badly, and we're going to continue to pray and fight for them. And the struggle continues. As we go through this, sometimes there's blessings to be found in this. The unity that we need to fight for the larger issues beyond crises in our community to get our fair share of our power and respect in this town.
But it was frustrating to me that Canarsie was always left off the list when I heard them talking about devastation in the news. And what I saw was devastation, that people are still trying to clean up and clean out. And the mayor had the nerve to put a DSNAP program that had to do with food stamps, and he left Canarsie off the list. Surprisingly, the darker the community, the less resources they're getting.
I'm representing the Black Psychiatrists of Greater New York and Associates, which is an organization that was founded by Dr. Harrison Ross and started by many of you in the room. The mission of the Black Psychiatrists of Greater New York and Associates is to increase access and awareness to mental health treatment among African Americans. And we'll be launching our website this coming week.
Tragedy is the reality. I'm sure a lot of us have, and that's something like an expert in disasters, and I don't think that's any title anybody wants to have. I remember when I was working tsunami in Indonesia, their equivalent of our director of healthcare of the country, whatever that is. But anyhow, he made the statement that if you're interested in disasters, come to Indonesia. We have one a day. I think we're going to begin to displace him with that title. It's a tragedy. It's a reality.
What affects African Americans affect all people of African ancestry. And that Pan-Africanism is one way that we can use to help us deal with many problems that we face in this society. And if we're going to thrive and even survive, we must come together. And when you have people who believe that things don't just happen, they happen for a reason, a lot of what we learn in school will not work for them. And it becomes important to really understand the role of culture in disaster management. And I hope that collectively we can start to look at this. You know, how would people who are different, how will they be able to make use of these wonderful skills and knowledge that we collectively have in this room?
Those of us who work in the vineyards, that's what we do. We support those who have the vision to make things happen. Sister Nell Prim, first of all, heard about this through, as I said earlier, Dr. Perez. She asked for permission from Dr. Harrison Ross, our president, to see if we could have a conversation. And then her mind began to just race. How can we make this happen, Brother Dunstan? I said, well, sister, you know, I don't know how to make nothing happen, but I'll work with you. I got involved in this as a result of Katrina and connected with her at Howard University right after we came back from New Orleans in January of 2006. And we were trying to do the same work that Dr. Prim and Dr. Ross were already doing. But beyond that, it's important for you to know that we tried to get this work done, as you heard the president of the local chapter, not the president, yes, she's the president, of ABSI reference earlier, through the American Red Cross. We got on a conference call that was convened by Dr. Randy Vaughn. And we literally pleaded with them to let us do the work in the communities that we wanted to do the work in, specifically Coney, Coney Island, and Far Rockaway. But she's made this happen. She got her office to sponsor Brother Hill to come in. She's paying for the lunch that you're going to be receiving to nourish your bodies. After that, Creator blesses you. I can't say enough about it. Show your love, please, for Dr. Nell.
Thank you, Brother Dunstan. You know, as you all know, when the country, the general population gets a cold, the Black community gets pneumonia. And Hurricane Sandy is another example of that very thing. And it's a blessing that the village has come together like this to convene. And that's really what today's meeting is all about, to bring everyone together in the same room, to hear the same information, to hear the same call to action, to do something. And I believe that through our collaborative work, that we can provide culturally competent responses to the mental health needs of people of African descent affected by this terrible disaster, to promote healing and resilience. That's what we're all about today.
As we traveled into Coney Island and under the leadership of Dr. Anthony, we went to the municipal parking lot, and we saw lines of people. I would say it had to have been over 1,000 people, all ages, all races, all genders, lined up for water, lined up for just basic human necessities. We found that the lines, or that system of lining people up, was quite inhumane. They had our elders, seniors, with walkers, canes, etc., sojourning approximately 10, 15, 20 blocks to the parking lot to access basic necessities. However, they'd stand on the line for several hours. I would say between 4 and 5 hours they would be online. Whatever it was that they really needed, most of it was gone. So that was the first situation for me that I became very incensed, because I'm saying, what society does not reverence its elders? And at that time, there was no transportation. At that time, many of the people did not have lights, heat, or hot water. Many of the people did not have elevator services, and those elderly that could not ambulate were left in their apartments with, maybe if a neighbor did not know they were there, they were unattended. They could not secure medical supplies or their prescriptions because the pharmacies were flooded out. The hospital was closed. Everywhere where there's a heavy concentration of people of color or the poor, you can know that services were at a minimum. The 3 o'clock calls really forced a lot of things to happen positive on behalf of the people in the disaster areas. However, getting the food is one thing, getting the lights back on is another, getting a little heat is another thing, but the trauma that comes from just being homeless, if you get homeless for a week, you're gonna need an intervention. Now we're talking about children who had to be removed from their schools because the environment is toxic. So now they've opened the schools. No one has gone in to test the air quality. I know they're saying they did, but they have not. And our children are back in these buildings. In fact, many of them are not even in their classrooms. They're sitting being warehoused in auditoriums, and you know there are standardized tests that are coming up. So that's a problem. The next issue with the children would be in their homes. You know, it's one thing that we're stacked on top of each other as it is, particularly in housing projects. But when you have a situation where you're in a housing project and you're stacked on top of each other and there's not enough of the basic necessities or services that you need to be provided, it is going to stimulate behaviors that are base. So now you have like the lower part of humanity operating, because we really don't know who our enemies are. So unfortunately, when trouble comes, we attack each other. Can we talk? Yes. All right, so we have these situations going on. In addition, you have now price gouging. You have stores opening, selling damaged products that they wiped off. You have all of this going on in this community. As late as Thursday, we attended a community meeting, and this is where the work of the clinicians have to come forward. We can pray with people, and we can give them spiritual counseling, but there becomes an edge. There's an edge where you need professional, trained, skilled intervention. Now, don't get me wrong, I know God has all power, but He has equipped you with just a little something extra that can get beyond me saying God is able. He has equipped you to dissect, listen, go in, and make some adjustments, whereas we can pray with power and believe God for the outcome, but your skills are so needed in these communities.
The work of disaster that I was telling Dr. Prim is tireless. That said, doing disaster work, a lot of people have issues themselves. The long hours, not taking care of themselves, the constant conference calls, the constant meetings, the constant calls from people that say you need to be here, I need you there. The first boss you have to listen to is yourself. And I can say personally, sometimes I haven't done that myself. Sometimes you have to pace yourself to do this. There's a whole paradigm shift of how do I meet the new needs of the community. I have to do outreach. I have to do different types of tracking. Different things matter. I may not sit and wait on appointments. I may have to do more assessments. I may have to do more psychoeducation. I may have to actually be present at an event such as this. When we think about leaders and healers, all of us are going to grab probably one of those roles, or you probably wouldn't have come here, hopefully. If you can lead by example, by telling your story that you checked on that lady next door every other day, like you did before Sandy, and I keep going back to that, because it's not always the big things that take a lot of time. It's not always the things that cost a lot of money. It's not always the things that really inconvenience us, because we don't always know the impact of what we do on the other person. You don't even have to talk about it. If you can trust that if you keep a routine that somebody else is appreciating, that there's probably something really powerful about that during this particular time. We're talking about child abuse, child neglect. All these things go up just with some of these stressors. A lot of families tend to have to make different adjustments in their work and living situations. What does that bring about? Stress. What does that bring about? Infidelity, divorce, paying rent 2 different places, buying more gas just to get to work, all sorts of things going on. If we think about things that affect people, health. If you have a health condition prior to another stressor, it's not going to make it any better. During a disaster or after a disaster, you're probably less likely to take care of your health because you're preoccupied with other things. And I would say people talk about resilience a lot. If you break resilience down, all of us have a cracking point or a breaking point for being resilient. It may not be today, it may be tomorrow. Let's suppose your area of town, if you didn't get affected this time by the water, is affected. You lost that car that was paid for. You lost that furniture that wasn't paid for. You didn't have any insurance. So today, you become a person without any resilience. You have tapped everything you had. You don't have any family down south. We don't have any money down south to pay that bill. Everybody has it. So don't get caught up into, oh, well, you got to be resilient. You got to be tough. But if we think about spiritual, in the context of reactions to stress, why do we have this meeting in the church today? Was the mental health center open? How many of y'all would have come to a meeting at a mental health center on a Saturday and told all your friends, hey, guess what I'm doing today? I'm going to a meeting at the mental health center. You probably had a little more pride in talking about it coming here. It's normal, it's natural. But I would offer on the serious side, some of you may have some questions of faith right now. Why do all these things keep happening to me? Wasn't life tough enough? Haven't I gone through enough? I don't know if I can take any more. So in those times, do we go to church more or do we stay at home more? When we think about that, the spirituality can be something that you might think is a strength. But sometimes think about it as a hindrance sometimes to people, because if you've lost someone, maybe to a natural death, that may be a time that you question your faith. It may be more appropriate if you think about it in textbook that, yeah, I'm going to become more faithful now because I know my loved one has transitioned. They've gone on to another place. But for a lot of us, that's not our first reaction, if we be honest with ourselves. So if you think about your spirituality being challenged, where do you need to have recovery start? Do you need to have that church open really soon? Do you need to have that pastor that wants to talk to you and smile, even though they have their own pain and they're tired? All right. So some of you think about that.
When we got out to Coney Island with Charles Barron, the people brightened up. They said, Charles